Good evening. The government said today that India could get another COVID-19 vaccine by August, with Biological E having completed phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trials of its vaccine, and that the incidence of breakthrough infection, that is, infection post-vaccination, is extremely low, and such infections are not deadly. Meanwhile, 3 eminent doctors shared prevention and treatment tips for COVID-19 in an interaction today. In focus tonight is eminent doctors call for judicious use of oxygen and remdesivir. That and more in this edition of Newsnight. I'm Manman Bhattacharya. First up, the headlines. 22 COVID patients die in Dr. Zakir Hussain Hospital of Nashik Municipal Corporation after leakage during refilling of oxygen tank at the hospital. President, Prime Minister, Home Minister and other top political leaders express anguish over the tragedy. Maharashtra government orders a probe into the mishap, declares compensation for the next of kin of the deceased. Two lakh 95,000 new COVID-19 cases reported in India in the last 24 hours. Over 15% positivity rate in 146 districts. Active cases in Maharashtra, UP, Karnataka, Chhattisgarh and Kerala exceed 1 lakh each. Efforts being made to ramp up availability of beds and medical oxygen across India. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal thanks the centre for increasing Delhi's oxygen quota. Union Health Ministry and eminent doctors call for judicious use of antiviral drug remdesivir and medical oxygen. ICMR study concludes that Covaxin neutralizes against multiple variants of SARS-CoV-2 and effectively neutralizes the double mutant strain as well. Government says India may get the fourth COVID-19 vaccine made by Biological E with support from the Government of India by August this year. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to participate in the Leaders Summit on Climate being held virtually on the 22nd and 23rd of April. PM to make his remarks on our collective spirit to 2030 on Leaders Session 1 on Thursday. Summit being held on the initiative of US President Joe Biden. Former Minneapolis policeman Derek Chauvin convicted of second-degree murder, third-degree murder and manslaughter in George Floyd case. US President Joe Biden calls it a giant step forward in the march towards justice in America. European Super League suffers a huge setback. 6 Premier League clubs announce withdrawal from the breakaway league within 48 hours of the announcement. Juventus also raises doubts on the veracity of the Super League. UK Minister underlines the need of fan-led review of football in the country. India celebrates Ram Navami. People visit temples maintaining COVID-appropriate protocol to offer prayers to Lord Ram. President, Prime Minister wish the nation on the occasion. PM exhorts all to maintain decorum and follow all preventive measures for safety from COVID-19. Reminds the countrymen to follow Dawai Bhi, Kadai Bhi. Our top focus tonight, reeling under a surging wave of COVID-19, Maharashtra saw a mishap in which 22 COVID-19 patients died in Dr. Zakir Hussain Hospital of Nashik Municipal Corporation after leakage during refilling of oxygen tank at the hospital. Maharashtra government has ordered a probe into the mishap. Some other states decided to tighten restrictions, like the Karnataka government decided to impose night curfew and the Assam government ordered closure of malls and weekly markets by 6 in the evening.
Amid the surging second wave of COVID-19 in the country, a mishap was reported from Dr. Zakir Hussain Hospital of Nashik Municipal Corporation. 22 COVID patients on life support died after a leakage was reported during refilling of oxygen tank at the hospital. 23 patients were on ventilator out of 150 on oxygen support. A fire brigade team was rushed to the spot of the mishap to contain the leak. Critical patients were shifted to other hospitals.
पुलिस की तरफ से यहाँ पर हमारा नियोजन शुरू हो रहा है कि जितने भी जो परिवार के जन हैं वो लोग संतप्त हैं और उन लोगों में भावना काफ़ी तीव्र है, तो इसलिए वो उस संदर्भ में, क्योंकि इसके आगे की भी कार्रवाई करनी है, डेड बॉडीज़ का क्रिमेशन भी करना है और यहाँ पर जो जिस तरीके से ये प्रकार हुआ है उसकी चौकसी भी करना है कि ये क्यों हुआ है, एक्चुअली में कारण नेमका क्या, उसका एक्चुअल कारण क्या है। तो ये दोनों स्तर पर पुलिस की कार्रवाई शुरू हुई।
Expressing grief on the tragedy, Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted, "The tragedy at a hospital in Nashik because of oxygen tank leakage is heart-wrenching. Anguished by the loss of lives due to it, condolences to the bereaved families in this sad hour." Union Home Minister Amit Shah tweeted his condolences too. Maharashtra government said it will conduct a probe into the matter.
वॉल से लीकेज हुआ और वॉल का लीकेज के वजह से प्रेशर ड्रॉप हो गया। कुल 22 का आंकड़ा है, 11 पुरुष है, 11 स्त्री है।
With the centre increasing Delhi's quota for oxygen, Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal thanked the centre for the intervention. In Uttar Pradesh, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath stressed that the state has no plans to impose a lockdown and restrictions like Corona curfew and bar on weekly markets would be strictly implemented. He said that there is no scarcity of medical oxygen in the state and efforts are being made to double the current testing capacity in the state. He issued directives that arrangements be made for testing, quarantine and access to medical services for migrant labourers from Delhi, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and other states.
बेड्स की व्यवस्था निरंतर की जा रही है, उसे विस्तारित किया जा रहा है। ऑक्सीजन के लिए भी निरंतर प्रयास हो रहा है कि अधिक से अधिक आवंटन करवाया गया है और उसको दूसरे राज्यों से लाने की व्यवस्था भी की जा रही है, लेकिन सावधान सतर्क रहकर संक्रमण से बचना ही सबसे अच्छा उपाय है इस समय।
In Assam, the state government has ordered for closure of malls and weekly markets by 6 p.m. and a cap of 20% have been put for funerals. The curbs shall remain in place till 30th of April. Assam government also announced free vaccination for those in the age group of 18 to 45 of years starting 1st of May, when the next phase of COVID-19 vaccination drive is all set to roll out across the country. Following the surge in cases, Karnataka has also decided to impose night curfew in the state. It will be implemented from 9 p.m. on Wednesday and will be enforced till the 4th of May. During the night curfew, cinema halls, gyms, theatres, bars and pubs and assembly halls will remain closed. Apart from this, weekend curfew will also be imposed from 9 p.m. on Friday till 6 a.m. on Monday.
With this strict measures that our Honorable Chief Minister has taken yesterday, that will help us to contain this pandemic.
Okay. So the Assam government has
down the numbers.
Okay.
At the same time, we can increase our IC.
Jharkhand has also imposed lockdown from 6 a.m. on 22nd of April till 6 a.m. on 29th of April. Puducherry has also announced full lockdown from Friday till 29th morning. Efforts are on in the nation to ensure availability of essential medical equipments, drugs and oxygen on one side, and restrictions imposed in various parts are an effort to break the chain of transmission. Bureau Report, DD India.
The Union Health Ministry has stated that 2,95,000 new COVID-19 cases were reported in India in the last 24 hours. In 146 worst affected districts, the positivity rate is over 15%, and active cases in Maharashtra, UP, Karnataka, Chhattisgarh and Kerala now exceed 1 lakh each. It said that there is a ray of hope in the declining mortality rate that stands at 1.17%. The government also expressed hope that another vaccine, biological E's indigenous COVID-19 vaccine, which has completed its phase 1 and phase 2 trials, looks set to join India's vaccination drive by August. The company has a capacity to manufacture 7 crore doses per month.
India continues to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. In the past 24 hours, more than 2,95,000 cases have emerged in the country. According to the Union Health Ministry, there are 21,57,000 active cases now, more than the maximum number in the last wave of the pandemic. The recovery rate is 85%, while the fatality rate is 1.16%. 146 districts have positivity rate of more than 15%.
देश में 740 से अधिक जिलों में कुल 146 जिले ऐसे हैं जहां पॉजिटिविटी 15% से अधिक है। राज्य सरकारों के लिए भी और भारत सरकार के लिए भी ये 146 जिले हैं जो चिंता का विषय हैं। हमने राज्य सरकारों से बहुत व्यापक विचार विमर्श किया है कि इन 146 जिलों में किस प्रकार के प्रयास किए जाने चाहिए जिससे कि इन्फेक्शन का ट्रांसमिशन रोका जा सके।
Maharashtra, Kerala, UP, Chhattisgarh and Karnataka have more than 1 lakh active cases as of now.
महाराष्ट्र में 6,85,000, उत्तर प्रदेश में 2,23,000, कर्नाटक में 1,59,000, छत्तीसगढ़ में 1,25,000 और केरला में 1,18,000 केसेस हैं। तो ये राज्य ऐसे हैं जिनके साथ भारत सरकार और राज्य सरकारें मिलकर इन राज्यों में अस्पतालों की बेड और अस्पतालों में ऑक्सीजन और दवाइयों की उपलब्धता, साथ ही साथ अस्पतालों में अन्य आधारभूत संरचनाओं को कैसे स्ट्रेंथन किया जाए, इस पर मिलकर प्रयास हो रहा है।
The effort is on to increase the supply of oxygen to many states. Delhi is trying to increase the number of beds also. Many beds have been added in recent days and many more will be added in days to come.
वर्तमान में हमने आदेश निकाले हैं जिसमें कि ये कहा है कि कुछ विशेष उद्योगों को छोड़कर अन्य उद्योगों के लिए अब ऑक्सीजन की सप्लाई रिस्ट्रिक्ट की जाएगी ताकि अधिक से अधिक ऑक्सीजन उपलब्ध हो सके मेडिकल उपयोग के लिए। आज जब हम आपसे बात कर रहे हैं, हम देश में सभी राज्यों को 6,600 मेट्रिक टन 7,500 में से एलोकेट कर रहे हैं। 30 अप्रैल तक के लिए हमने राज्यों का डिफरेंट ऑक्सीजन प्लांट्स के साथ मैपिंग भी किया है। ये एक डायनामिक एक्सरसाइज है।
The vaccination process is also maintaining its momentum in the nation. More than 13 crore doses have been given so far. In the past 24 hours, 29,90,197 vaccine doses were administered. Centre had announced the decision to expand the ambit of vaccinations few days back. It allowed vaccination to everyone above the age of 18 from 1st of May. Apart from it, it was also decided that vaccine manufacturers would supply 50% of their monthly doses to Government of India. The vaccine manufacturers were free to supply remaining 50% doses to the state governments. Manufacturers were required to make an advance declaration of the price for 50% supply. Private hospitals would have to procure their supplies of COVID-19 vaccine exclusively from the 50% supply earmarked for other than the Government of India channel. The Serum Institute of India has announced the pricing for Covishield vaccine for the open market. The state governments will be supplied the vaccine at ₹400 per dose, while the private hospitals will be supplied the vaccine at ₹600 per dose. Meanwhile, according to a study by ICMR, Bharat Biotech's Covaxine is effective against mutant strains of the virus. It is also effective against double mutants. Bharat Biotech and ICMR also released results of phase 3 trials of Covaxine. The results are encouraging and Covaxine is 78% effective overall clinically.
बायोलॉजिकल ई का फेज़ 1 फेज़ 2 ट्रायल लगभग ख़त्म हो गया है। वो डेटा अपना सबमिट कर रहे हैं बहुत जल्दी, कुछ ही दिनों में, और उसके बाद वो फेज़ 3 में जाएंगे। बहुत सिग्निफिकेंट डेवलपमेंट है बिकॉज ये मैन्युफैक्चरर बहुत पुराने हमारे मैन्युफैक्चरर रहे हैं चाइल्डहुड वैक्सीन के, एंड दे हैव अ वेरी मेजर कैपेसिटी, समथिंग लाइक 7 करोड़ डोजेस पर मंथ की कैपेसिटी वो कोविड वैक्सीन के तरफ वो ईयर मार्क करेंगे। वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट डेवलपमेंट, और हमें उम्मीद है कि ये अगस्त से वैक्सीन जो है उपलब्ध होगा, ऐसा वो उन्होंने कम्युनिकेट किया है।
The center has said that overuse and excessive use of antiviral drug remdesivir is not advisable and it should be used judiciously. On the issue of oxygen availability in hospitals, Center has advised the use as per requirements. Center is confident of winning the war against the COVID pandemic.
यूनियन गवर्नमेंट, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट, पीपल ऑफ इंडिया, हम सब मिलके साहस से, धैर्य से, अनुशासन से इस वेव को भी जीतेंगे और ये मिलके करके दिखाएंगे। और इसमें हमें मिल जुड़ना है, तंत्र को जुड़ना है, हम सबको जुड़ना है और इसको करके दिखाना है। इसको फेस करेंगे। ये वेव्स बाकी जगह भी आई, यहाँ आई है, इसका भी मुकाबला करेंगे और सारे टूल्स हमारे पास हैं। सब जुड़ के इस काम को आगे बढ़ाएंगे।
Meanwhile, the Department of Revenue has waived custom duties on remdesivir and its active pharmaceutical ingredients. This step will further augment domestic availability of the injection. Government has also approved setting up of PSA plants in 162 government hospitals to increase the availability of oxygen. Bureau Report, DD India.
3 eminent doctors have come forward to dispel myths and misconceptions about COVID-19 pandemic and its treatment protocols. The doctors have taken the initiative to educate the people and encourage them to follow COVID-appropriate protocol. AIIMS Director Dr. Randeep Guleria, Chairman and Founder of Narayana Health Dr. Devi Shetty and Chairman of Medanta Dr. Naresh Trehan addressed issues related to COVID-19 in the country. Speaking in the virtual address, the Chairman of Narayana Health, Dr. Devi Shetty, stressed on the need to be self-vigilant and recognize the early symptoms of COVID. He advised people to go for RT-PCR tests if they exhibit symptoms of an infection like body ache, cold, cough, indigestion, diarrhea or vomiting.
My message to all of you is, if you have any symptom like body ache, fever, cold, cough, anything, or indigestion, diarrhea, vomiting, whatever problem you have, I have one important message. Please get yourself tested for COVID. That is the most important thing you need to do.
Touching upon a vital aspect in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic, Dr. Shetty underlined the importance of maintaining proper protocol and religiously following the standard operating procedure even if they are asymptomatic. He said that even such patients should isolate themselves, wear a mask and check their oxygen saturation every 6 hours.
There is a possibility you may be asymptomatic. Then the doctors will tell you that stay at home. Yes, please stay at home. Isolate yourself, that's very, very important. Wear a mask and check your oxygen saturation every 6 hours with your own pulse oximeter. If your oxygen saturation is staying above 94%, no problems. But if it is falling after the exercise, then you need to call your doctor. It's very, very important that you get the right treatment at the right time.
Dr. Naresh Trehan also underlined the immense importance of following COVID-appropriate behavior. He said that every citizen should wear masks, maintain hand hygiene and social distancing, as these are the first line of defense in the fight against the coronavirus.
There is good hope, but masking, of course, is your first duty. Wear it, distance yourself, and hand hygiene is every citizen's responsibility and the first line of defense and the most effective way of preventing the virus from spreading. So the bed situation in India, a lot of expansion of capacity has been done in the last year. We are also more capacities to be added, but what I would like to communicate is, and appeal to people is, don't rush to the hospital just because you have tested positive. You will be taken care of or will be given beds if everybody participates responsibly in this and the doctor prescribes that yes, it's time to bring you into the hospital. Same advice we are giving to all our doctors also, to take care of patients properly. When they need it, only then advise that they should come into the hospital. There is no such thing as preventive hospitalization.
The issue of oxygen supply and its requirement by patients was prominently highlighted by the 3 eminent doctors. Dr. Trehan urged the people that if they don't need oxygen, then don't use it as a security blanket. He added that there is enough oxygen available and there will be no shortage whatsoever if it is used judiciously and wastage is avoided.
In any country, any part of the world, there is X amount of oxygen available as a as production. Today, we have enough oxygen if we try to use it judiciously. We don't want to waste oxygen. So the protocols for oxygen use and the response to what level we want the oxygenation in a patient to be, and the fact that I would like to inform the public also that if you don't need it, don't use it just for a security blanket. If you are not using it and you are walking around or eating or something, switch off the oxygen. We are giving the same advisory to doctors and to hospitals also, that judicious use of oxygen most definitely should be done, and any patient who needs it should get it. So wastage will only lead to depriving some people of this oxygen, which we as individuals, as citizens, have a collective responsibility that we do not want to get into that state where we feel responsible for being selfish in wasting something and depriving somebody else.
Dr. Randeep Guleria also touched upon the same topic, firmly stressing that oxygen is not required by all the patients and is given only in specific cases.
Important issue here is that taking oxygen intermittently. Your saturation is all right, but you say, okay, let me take oxygen for half an hour after my meals, or if I take oxygen for a few hours in the day, my saturation goes up and I'm feeling better and I should therefore continue oxygen, is actually a waste of oxygen. There is no data to show that this will be of any help to you, and therefore this is something that you should not do. Many patients have started keeping oxygen cylinders at home and have started taking it for half an hour, 2 hours. That itself is more harmful and is actually again denying oxygen to people who actually need it. Therefore, in those individuals who are having an oxygen saturation of 93, 94, there is no need to really take high oxygen or high flow oxygen just to maintain your saturation at 98, 99. It is not going to be of any benefit. Therefore, you should have a judicious use of oxygen. There is no need to take oxygen if your saturation is over 95. If it is less than 9 and over 94, if it is less than 94, you need close monitoring, but you still may not need oxygen because your oxygen in the blood is still sufficient in those patients who are healthy. In some patients who have chronic disease or who have other problems like chronic heart disease, you may want to keep the oxygen saturation on a slightly higher side. But even if your oxygen is around 90, 92, don't panic, consult your doctor. You may need to be very closely monitored, but it is not that you should start oxygen to maintain your saturation over 97, 98. It is actually going to be of not much benefit.
The three doctors also emphasized the critical aspect of availability and application of remdesivir. Dr. Naresh Trehan said that remdesivir needs to be given only after doctors look at test results. He said remdesivir is not a magic pill and it only decreases viral load in people who take it.
We have now made a protocol that remdesivir is to be given not to everybody who will test positive, and that misconception I would like to take out of people's mind. Only the doctor will look at a set of test results and a set of symptoms which show that a person is experiencing a viral load which is giving them high fever. They are vulnerable population like people who have liver disease, who have kidney disease, people who are on chemotherapy but from cancer, highly diabetics, obese people. People who have BMI greater than 35 are the ones who are most vulnerable, and people who are showing signs of cough, fever, which is not responsive to other medicines. So in the first few days of the illness, if the doctor feels appropriate, only then remdesivir is to be given and not to be given to everybody. It is not a Ramban, and it is only effective in decreasing the viral load in the people who need it.
This aspect was also endorsed by Dr. Randeep Guleria, who discussed this issue at length and advised against any voluntary or indiscriminate use of antiviral drug remdesivir. He said that majority of people recover by taking paracetamol and staying hydrated, and only a small percentage of patients actually require remdesivir.
Like you treat a simple cold, you can get away with treating COVID in majority of people with just taking paracetamol, keeping yourself well hydrated. It's only a small percentage which will require drugs like remdesivir, and there is no data which suggests that remdesivir taken in mild disease will save lives or will have any benefit. The data for remdesivir does not show that it actually decreases mortality. It only has been shown to decrease hospital stay, and the large study done by WHO, the recovery trial, was a negative study. It did not show any role of remdesivir. Therefore, don't consider this to be a magic bullet. It is something that we need to keep in mind.
Dr. Guleria said that if the nation works as a team and uses oxygen and remdesivir judiciously, there will be no shortage of anything, anywhere in the nation.
I think as a country collectively, if we work together and say that we will use remdesivir judiciously, we use oxygen judiciously, there will be no shortage of oxygen, whether we talk of Maharashtra, Delhi, Chhattisgarh or any other state, because in terms of the number of patients who need oxygen and the supply of oxygen, that is well balanced. But if you suddenly start hoarding oxygen, if you start using it, you don't need it, then obviously you will have a deficiency which is self-created rather than actually existing. So my appeal to everyone is that please don't take oxygen when it is not required. Taking oxygen just for the fun of it is denying oxygen to someone who may actually need it and whose life could be saved.
And that brings us to our In Focus tonight, which is eminent doctors call for judicious use of oxygen and remdesivir. To talk about that, we have with us Dr. J.A. Jayalal, National President, Indian Medical Association, and Dr. Neeraj Nishal. He is Associate Professor, Department of Medicine, AIIMS. I welcome you both to Newsnight. I'll come to you, Dr. Jayalal, first. There is a mad scramble going on in the country vis-a-vis two commodities. One is medical oxygen and the other is the antiviral drug remdesivir. If we come to oxygen first, when should alarm bells ring? Should people be hoarding oxygen cylinders at home? What is the right cutoff for oxygen saturation? And after the cutoff is breached, what should a particular patient do at home?
Yeah, thank you very much. And when the patient is at home for home isolation, every day he checks his oxygen saturation. When it falls below the 94%, there is a time that he needs to think of using an oxygen. Still you get the 94, 95, do not worry that there is no need. And can you predict whether you will be enter into a level whether you need an hospitalization and oxygenation? Yes, there is a test we now ask every person in the home is a 6 minutes walk test. You check your oxygen saturation, let it show us as 96 or 98. Then you want to check whether you are susceptible to go to the level of needing oxygen. Walk for 6 minutes, a slow walk, whatever there around your house you walk, come back and check your oxygen saturation. If it falls below 5% than what it was originally, then you are a person susceptible to get more lung damage and kindly take a need for getting an oxygen at a nearby place or get admitted. Till then, there is no need. Another thing which we always advise you, please to use whenever you are in the house for isolation, at least for 2 hours, try to sleep with a prone position. That means your stomach down and your back is up. And try to make a deep breathing. And when you are putting yourself in a prone position and taking a good breath, and your natural oxygen is good enough to train you and make you comfortable. So the need for oxygen is for less than 10% of the people. So do not get worried. The nature has a full oxygen. The hospitals are now equipped with oxygenation. And if we can judiciously use the oxygen, I am sure we will be able to overcome this crisis. Government is taking all efforts. The doctors are taking all efforts. Be safe, be comfortable, do not get panic.
Absolutely. Do you agree with that, Dr. Neeraj Nishal? We are looking at a very high demand of medical oxygen, and eminent doctors have said that we need to ensure that there is no hoarding. We need to ensure that there is no wastage at the same time. There should be judicious use. Don't use oxygen intermittently just to, just thinking that the oxygen saturation level should be 98, 99 and not less than 92, 93. What do you make of what's going on with regard to the high demand for oxygen in the country, and what is the right cutoff? And if that cutoff is breached, should one person call a doctor? Should one start arranging for an oxygen cylinder?
What we believe in pandemic situation, panicky takes over common sense, and that's what's happening. Now we have to understand that when a patient requires oxygen, he or she has to be in hospital. So there is no point in holding oxygen at home. Because once a patient starts requiring oxygen, he requires medical care, medical attention, and one cannot take care of that patient at home. So my simple advice and message to general public would be, by hoarding this oxygen, you are denying somebody who will actually require oxygen, especially in hospital setting. And when we monitor oxygen, one has to be careful that we have to, the oxygen saturation will have a range. It will never be always the same value. So if it is between 94 to 98, then that is a time when you should not worry too much. When this trend shifts to say 90 to 94, that is the time when your situation is going down, and rather than trying to arrange oxygen at home, you should be looking for a place in hospital, because that is the time, that is the most crucial time when a doctor can actually intervene and save your life. So hoarding oxygen and trying to become doctor oneself is the biggest problem which we might be facing. And just because you have got this disease and you start hoarding oxygen at home, which you may not require after all, because 80 to 85% of patients will remain asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic. Only 10 to 15% patient may require hospitalization and oxygen support. So it's not a right practice that you start hoarding oxygen, because oxygen is a drug, like Dr. Guleria just mentioned. It's a drug, and one has to use it under medical supervision. One should not be doctor himself or herself. That can cause more harm.
Absolutely. Dr. Jailal, on the huge demand for remdesivir, some people tend to think that this is an over-the-counter drug if they are asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic, or if they have mild symptoms of COVID-19, they can take it from a chemist shop and they can consume it and they'll be all right. Would you like to dispel the myths around the usage of remdesivir? Who should take remdesivir? In what circumstances should it be administered?
Absolutely. Now there is a panic about remdesivir is also there. Everyone, when they are tested positive with RT-PCR, thinking that the remdesivir is a drug which is a life-saving drug. We want to emphasize it again and again to all our public that remdesivir is not a life-saving drug. It is not needed for anyone who is not with a moderate to severe type of infection, because we know 80 to 85% of you will be only a mild symptom and just a fever, body ache, body pain, your saturation is good. There is no need to use remdesivir. And this we are taking up to even train our doctors and also make them sure that they are not prescribing the remdesivir unnecessarily. The government is also taking steps. This remdesivir is not available over the counter sale. Then let us understand that's making a rest and taking an adequate care, observing your vitals, and only when it is necessary, remdesivir will be used. And do not get panic. Remdesivir is not going to safeguard you. Otherwise, even rampant use of remdesivir is also one of the reasons why there is so much of mutation that is taking place. The drug may end in a level that we will not have any drug to counter the effect of the virus. So, for the interest of the country, for the interest of your own house, please do not urge and search for the remdesivir unnecessarily. Only when your doctor is prescribing it, he will make it available at your doorstep. And be relaxed, and the government is taking all steps to make it reaching to you if it is really need for you at any moment of your disease pattern.
Dr. Nishchal, is there anything called preventive hospitalization that irrespective of the severity of COVID-19 infection that you have, you should get hospitalized? Because if you get hospitalized, you will be totally treated and cured.
So no, just I will add to remdesivir this thing, because this is a very important aspect. Somehow there is a misconception that if somebody has comorbidity, that patient require remdesivir. So I will say those with comorbidities, if we prescribe them remdesivir indiscriminately without clinical status, then actually we will be doing more harm. Say if a patient has chronic liver disease, they are not a right candidate for remdesivir. If somebody has chronic kidney disease, again they are not right candidate for remdesivir. If somebody has cardiac disorder, some CAD, again, we have seen that remdesivir causes bradycardia and other rhythm disorders. So all these comorbidities should not be a criteria for using remdesivir, and that has to be kept in mind, because we might be doing more harm than good to these patients. And as far as this preventive hospitalization is concerned, I will say this is wastage of resource, and a bed which may be utilized by somebody who actually needs this bed is basically gone. So that is what we are seeing, that those who are getting infected, they are trying to occupy these beds, whereas those who actually needs are not able to find space in hospital. So this preventive hospitalization, preempting that if something goes wrong, I will be in hospital and will be taken care of, is a wrong way in this pandemic situation, because we are denying and we might be a cause of death for somebody who could have benefited from that bed. So this preventive hospitalization should be avoided. You should monitor yourself at home. And in case of any difficulty, you should then go to hospital or stay in touch with somebody who can guide you when to reach a hospital, what are the warning signs, and what symptoms you should look for before deciding going to hospital.
Dr. Jailal, should one presume that if you have symptoms of COVID-19, you are COVID-19 positive unless proven otherwise? And there are some reports that even RT-PCR tests are returning COVID negative results, even if the person is COVID positive or has most of the symptoms of COVID-19. Should one go in for a retest? When should the first RT-PCR test be done? Should it be done on the third or fourth day of symptoms, or should it be done as soon as symptoms start showing?
Yeah, when you have a symptoms, it is better to start in that RT-PCR right on the day one, because that will be able to give us a lot of values. We must understand that when you are RT-PCR, we are studying the antigens here. There is a different kinds of antigen. When you are not, all the tests are not reading all the antigens at the time. So there is every possibility. The RT-PCR may be negative, still you will have the COVID positivity or COVID infection may be there. We see a lot of patients with RT-PCR negative with lot of lung infection coming with the CT investigation. They show that the lung is affected much more than things. So the system what we have for the RT-PCR testing is not foolproof what we have today. If it is positive, it is yes, we will take it as a positive. If it is negative, but you have still the fever is continuing, your headache is persisting, you have the your temperature is increasing, and your baseline value of the CRP or ESR or D-dimer is rising, then you need to get hospitalized and you need to get further investigation like CT test to see and confirm that whether you are having a COVID positivity, then I will take the treatment accordingly. So only what we are saying is RT-PCR positive tells you that you are infected, and even if it is negative, when you have a consent symptoms, please continue an adequate care, and those are the people who need hospitalization and further continued management in the hospital setup.
Dr. Neeraj, do you agree that the test should be done on the very first day of the symptoms, or should the test be slightly delayed, maybe on the third or fourth day of the symptoms? And what happens if a person exhibits also symptoms of COVID-19, but the test result of RT-PCR test is still negative?
So one of the reasons for upsurge in cases during this time is that people have started ignoring their symptoms and waiting for thinking that they are in phase of denial that I cannot have COVID, because at the time number of cases were much less, and that has led to delay in diagnosis, and by the time the cases were diagnosed, that particular person would have infected many more patients, and this cycle propagated. And the reason for this upsurge is mostly that aspect only. So if you test negative, there are various reasons for testing negative. One could be simply the procedure which was done, the sample collection was not properly done, or at that particular time viral load was not that high and the test returned negative. So at this time, if you are symptomatic, if you have any symptom, isolate yourself first thing, try to get yourself tested very first day. Even if it turns negative and you have those symptoms, continue isolation and repeat this test after 3-4 days. I'm sure you will be picked up by that time. So just because one test returns negative and you have symptoms, that doesn't mean that you will not follow COVID appropriate behavior and stop isolating. And if we follow these appropriate behavior, I think we will be able to control pandemic. Otherwise, we are in for a long haul.
Absolutely. Dr. Jailal, you would remember that in the initial phase of the vaccination drive, there was a lot of vaccine hesitancy. Some people may still say that why should we get vaccinated? Even after the first dose, we are getting infected. Even after the second dose, we are getting infected. What would you say to those people who may still have vaccine hesitancy? Today, the Union Health Ministry gave out data that the incidence of breakthrough infection, that is infection after getting a dose of vaccine, is extremely low in the country. Just 2 to 4 people get it out of 10,000 patients. So what would you say to those who still have doubts about getting vaccinated?
Absolutely. I mean, the vaccination is the need of the hour to protect yourself with the immunity and also to develop the herd immunity. Yes, even after the vaccination, you may possibly getting the infection, but definitely the people who are dying today in the state, almost 2,000 people have died yesterday, and none of them were vaccinated. And we have seen the fully vaccinated person, no one is ending up with death, no one is ending up with a severe infection. Just you may get the infection, but definitely you will not go to a stage of a severe infection and death. We must all remember, when we travel in a bus or travel in a car, there is a most likely to some of the cars get into accident, that some of the people are dying. But still we yet travel by all means, because we believe that the minuscule amount of the people who are dying cannot avoid our travel. Equally which, even if the statistics shows for out of 1 million people when getting infected, when getting vaccinated, there is some amount of side effect will be there for 1 or 2 people. And please do not get worried about that. And the benefit of the vaccination is tremendous. And when 70% of our people could be getting vaccinated, we will be able to have the herd immunity. Thereby, we will be able to prevent the vaccine entering into our state and entering into our region, and they will be able to make our country free from the vaccine corona infection. So you are not doing for your selfish service, you are doing a social service, you are doing a national duty, that by doing vaccination, you are helping this country to get rid of the corona. So at any cost, do not worry, the mild infection will pass away and you will be protected from death and severe infection if you are fully vaccinated.
Dr. Nishal, on preventive measures, some people wonder whether they should wear double masks, whether they should wear surgical masks or cloth masks or N95 masks. And what about those places where there is no cross ventilation? In most offices, there is no cross ventilation. That option is there in homes. So does one person become more susceptible to getting infected? Because there are certain reports that have been published. I understand one in the Lancet as well, that talks about the possibility of the infection being airborne.
Yeah, definitely cross ventilation and natural ventilation is very important for preventing not only COVID-19 but also many other diseases. So wherever possible, there should be provision of natural ventilation. And where it's not possible, of course, the physical distancing which we are talking about, that has to be of paramount importance. The distance between 2 desks should be sufficient. If possible, create a barrier between 2 desks in whatever way it's possible. As far as use of mask is concerned, if you see, most of the people are not even using single mask. Then forget about triple mask or N95 mask. So that's, I feel, is not required if everybody is using mask in their routine life. When you are entering a highly infected area, say COVID ward, then of course N95 is important and that has to be worn. But for general public, I still believe that if each one of us wear normal mask, then we will be able to prevent the spread of this disease. And at the same time, for regarding vaccination, I will also say that is the most important tool apart from COVID appropriate behavior, because vaccine, we have to understand the difference between getting infected and getting a disease. So primary role of vaccine is to prevent any mortality and morbidity that may arise after you get infected. That is something which needs to be clarified to each and everyone who has doubt about the efficacy and safety of this vaccine. Those who got infected could easily defeat this disease. That's the most important aspect of these vaccines. So the worry of getting side effect of this vaccine is much less than what the chances of mortality that may arise because of COVID-19. So, humble appeal for follow this COVID appropriate behavior, which is your social vaccination and the biological vaccination, and both are the most important preventive tools against this COVID-19 pandemic.
Dr. Jailal, a quick last word from you. There are reports now that the ICMR study has revealed that Covaxin neutralizes against multiple variants of COVID-19 and effectively neutralizes the double mutant strain as well, which is of concern, particularly in the second wave. So those who've been administered Covaxin, can they rest assured that they are protected against the double mutant too? And we are aware that this virus is mutating time and again, and there are at least 4 variants that we have: the South African variant, the UK variant, the Brazilian variant, the double variant, and some reports are there that there is a triple mutant as well. So do we have to wait for further vaccines to come in to protect us against all the variants? How effective is the current lot?
Yeah, today what we have, the vaccine and the Covishield which we are using. Now the scientific proof has come from the ICMR. The Covaxin is giving a useful protection against the mutant variant also. But the previous reports with an AstraZeneca vaccine of the Covishield also in the Western countries has proved that it is also protecting us from the mutation. So as on date, the vaccines both which we are having is protective against the normal virus and also the mutant virus. So we have nothing to be worried. And what we are going to see with the new vaccine which is going to come, the Sputnik, which has nearly 91% of the benefit of the usage, and that will be going to be a great benefit for us. And we are not very sure that how long this immunity is going to persist and what the time we need to repeat this vaccination also. That is yet the scientific report has to come. But as on date, we believe at least for a year that this vaccination, what we have taken, will give some protection. So what we have taken is good enough, and that will be definitely be safeguard us from the getting further mortality or the severe diseases. So let us utilize the opportunity. The government has opened it for all the people above the 18 years. That is a welcome step. I'm sure the entire population will come forward and take this vaccination and protect themselves and protect our community.
Absolutely. So by and large, we have all the resources in place to defeat the second wave of COVID-19 as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Neeraj Nishal and Dr. Jailal, for having joined us on Newsnight tonight. Let's move on now. Amid the surge in COVID-19 cases across the country, a media report surfaced claiming that export of oxygen from India rose over 700% in January 2021 as compared to 2020. However, this is fake news. The PIB fact-check Twitter handle tweeted that the report is false. It further stated that the industrial oxygen exports are being mistaken as medical oxygen and annual exports were less than 0.4% of annual capacity. Also, no oxygen exports are happening now. Another social media post said that the export of oxygen from India has increased by 734% between January 2020 and January 2021. However, when the fact-checking exercise was carried out, it too came out as a false social media claim. The PIB further stated that only surplus industrial oxygen was exported primarily in low-demand months of December 2020 and January 2021. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will participate in the Leaders Summit on Climate at the invitation of US President Joe Biden, being held virtually on 22nd and 23rd April. PM Modi will make his remarks in the Leaders Session 1 on 22nd April on our collective sprint to 2030. Nearly 40 other world leaders are participating in the summit. The leaders will exchange views on climate change, enhancing climate actions, mobilizing finance towards climate mitigation and adaptation, nature-based solutions, climate security, as well as technological innovations for clean energy. The leaders will also deliberate on how the world can align climate action with inclusive and resilient economic development while respecting national circumstances and sustainable development priorities. The summit is a part of a series of global meetings focusing on climate issues being held in the run-up to COP26 in November 2021. Every year, 21st April is marked as National Civil Services Day to appreciate the tremendous work done by officers engaged in public administration in various departments of the central and state governments. President Ramnath Kovind extended warm wishes on the occasion of Civil Services Day. He tweeted on Civil Services Day, "My greetings to civil servants past and present. Our democracy is rightly called the steel frame and you've been the backbone of our fight against COVID-19. You've raised the bar of professional excellence and dedication in public service. All the best." Prime Minister Narendra Modi also wished all civil servants on the occasion of Civil Services Day. In a tweet, he said, "Best wishes to all civil servants on the occasion of Civil Services Day. In different terrains and across different sectors, they are working tirelessly to keep and help our citizens and enhance national progress. May they keep serving the nation with the same zeal." Union Information and Broadcasting Minister Prakash Javadekar also wished civil servants on the occasion. He tweeted, "On Civil Services Day, I extend my greetings to all the civil servants who have played a pioneering role in nation building and continue to work hard." Union Minister of State for Development of Northeastern Region, Dr. Jitendra Singh, heaped praise on civil servants on National Civil Services Day. He tweeted, "Civil Services Day today is an occasion to acknowledge that under PM Narendra Modi, when India is a frontline warrior against Corona, India's civil services are contributing substantially to live up to this unprecedented challenge." Ram Navami is being celebrated with religious fervour and enthusiasm in different parts of the country on Wednesday. The festival marks the birth of Lord Ram, the seventh incarnation of Lord Vishnu. This is the second straight year that Ram Navami is being marked amid the COVID-19 pandemic. As curfew has been imposed in most of the places due to COVID-19 situation in the country, the devotees offered prayers in temples following all COVID guidelines and protocols. President Ramnath Kovind greeted the nation on the auspicious occasion of Ram Navami. He tweeted heartiest greetings to all countrymen on the auspicious occasion of Ram Navami. This festival celebrated on the birthday of Maryada Purushottam Ram inspires us to follow dignity in life. Come, let us all take a pledge, and we will also defeat the COVID-19 epidemic with integrity and restraint. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also greeted people on Ram Navami and wished that all may continue to be blessed by the grace of Lord Ram. PM tweeted that as per the message of the Maryada Purushottam Shri Ram, we all must maintain decorum and follow all preventive measures for safety from corona. He reminded, Dawai bhi, kadai bhi. Vaccines as well as restrictions. In international news, former Minneapolis policeman Derek Chauvin was convicted on Tuesday of second-degree murder, third-degree murder and manslaughter in the deadly arrest of George Floyd. The charges carry maximum sentences ranging from 10 to 40 years in prison. The 12-member jury found Chauvin criminally liable in Floyd's death last year after considering 3 weeks of testimony from 45 witnesses, including bystanders, police officials and medical experts. Jurors began their deliberations on Monday. In a confrontation captured in video, Chauvin pushed his knee into the neck of Floyd, a 46-year-old black man in handcuffs, for more than 9 minutes on the 25th of May 2020, as he and 3 fellow officers arrested Floyd, who was accused of using a fake $20 bill to buy cigarettes at a grocery store. Floyd's death prompted protests against racism and police brutality in many cities in the U.S. and around the world last year. U.S. President Joe Biden said that a moment of significant change was possible in America after the jury convicted former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin of murder in the death of George Floyd. Addressing from the White House, the U.S. President described it as a giant step forward in the march towards justice in America.
It was a murder in the full light of day, and it ripped the blinders off for the whole world to see. The systemic racism the Vice President just referred to. The systemic racism is a stain on our nation's soul. The knee on the neck of justice for Black Americans. Profound fear and trauma. The pain, the exhaustion that Black and brown Americans experience every single day. No one should be above the law. And today's verdict sends that message. But it's not enough. We can't stop here. In order to deliver real change and reform, we can and we must do more to reduce the likelihood that tragedies like this will ever happen and occur again.
The family of George Floyd said they were relieved that former Minneapolis policeman Derek Chauvin was convicted of murder in their brother's death. George Floyd's brother, Philonis Floyd, said that today they are able to breathe again. Outside the courthouse, a crowd of several hundred people erupted in cheers when the verdict was announced. Floyd family's attorney, Benjamin Crump, said they were leaving the court knowing that America is a better country, adding that this moment was important not just for Floyd's legacy, but for the country's legacy. In sports news, Britain's Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden said that a decision by 6 English Premier League clubs to quit the European Super League project was not the end of the matter, and a wider look at the governance of the sport was needed. The Culture Secretary said a fan-led review of football would now take place.
The fan-led review will look at finance, governance, but also the fan experience. One of the things that struck me in the conversation that the Prime Minister and I had with fans yesterday, they talked about how a few years back, many fans did have stakes in a number of clubs. Over time, they've been brought out of those. I think it's important that the fan-led review does look at how we can ensure that fans do have a financial stake in their clubs.
The league, which was announced on Sunday with 12 founding members, has been championed by Real Madrid president Florentino Perez, the new competition's chairman. The breakaway European Super League project lay in tatters after the 6 English Premier League clubs involved quit on Tuesday, 48 hours after agreeing to join Italian and Spanish teams in the new elite soccer competition. Manchester City were the first to back out of the venture, and then Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United, Liverpool and Tottenham Hotspur announced they were following suit. Manchester United Executive Vice Chairman Ed Woodward fell on his sword, announcing his resignation shortly before his club gave up on a project he had been influential in bringing about. Most of the statements from the English clubs were short, but Arsenal apologised to their fans for being involved. English football's Big Six were part of a 12-team group also containing Spain's Atletico Madrid, Barcelona and Real Madrid, and Italy's AC Milan, Inter Milan and Juventus that announced plans to form the breakaway league, which they hoped to establish as a new midweek competition. It was condemned by fans, football authorities and politicians across Europe. Liverpool owner John Henry apologised to supporters and to manager Jurgen Klopp for the disruption caused by the club's involvement in the breakaway European Super League project.
I want to apologise to all the fan supporters of Liverpool Football Club for the disruption I caused over the past 48 hours. It goes without saying, but should be said, that the project put forward was never going to stand without the support of the fans. No one ever thought differently in England. Over these 48 hours, you were very clear that it would not stand. We heard you. I heard you. And everyone who works so hard at LFC to make our fans proud. They have absolutely no responsibility for this disruption.
Breakaway European Super League founder and Juventus chairman Andrea Agnelli said on Wednesday that the league can no longer go ahead after 6 English clubs withdrew.
Look, I think, to be frank and honest, no. Evidently, that's not the case. So, I mean, I wouldn't be talking so much about where that project has gone. I remain convinced of the beauty of that project, of the value it would have developed to the pyramid, of the creation of the best competition in the world. But admittedly, no. I mean, I don't think that that project is now still up and running.
That's it then in this edition of News 9. I'll be moving out of the safe confines of the studio, and hence I'll be wearing a mask. We urge you all as well to mask up whenever you move out of your homes. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching.